Okay, I think we're live now. Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today's another live chat, and with me I have Nefarious Wes. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on Nefarious Wes's channel if you haven't been there, if you haven't checked it out yet. So he started his channel in February 2015, so a couple of years before I started mine. And he's got 4,690 subscribers, so he's getting up there. He's almost at the 5K. Much like me, he does video game reviews, top 10s. I don't really do the top 10s, but something that people have asked if I'm going to start doing them, but I don't know. Game comparisons, which I love to do. He also does music reviews. That's something I don't really touch on, so that's kind of interesting. And other miscellaneous goodies, according to his bio on his channel. So welcome to Brian's Man Cave.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. It's a pleasure.
Now, I do have to say, I set up my YouTube account in February 2015. I didn't start really doing this, making stuff for my channel, I would say, until September 2015. So.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
a little bit of a few months.
I'm going to hit my 3-year anniversary at the end of this month.
Yeah.
It's going to be 3 years from my first review, my first real video. I uploaded stuff before, but it wasn't taken seriously, you know.
For sure, I've actually I've seen people there. I've heard people say that before, where they started their channel or they used like their regular Google account, which never had anything attached to it, just their name, and then after who knows how long, then they decide they want to start doing videos, and then the next thing you know, they've created a brand and they start going. And so it could be misleading. It looks like they've been doing it for 9 years, but really they've only actually been seriously making the videos for, say, 2.
Yeah, yeah.
But I always wondered, though. I wonder if that always helps with the algorithms and all that stuff. But I don't know. I don't think it does. It's kind of an interesting concept. I'm just going to make sure that I can check the chat while I'm doing this. So anybody's in there. So we have Mr. Toon and Green Lantern HG in the chat. And the Game Beaters, looks like the Renaissance is here. And Great White North. So lots of people are coming in. That's awesome. Feel free to throw some questions out there in the chat, because I always like to do a question period during the chat, just to interact with the people on the chat. So anyways, yeah, as I've done this for, I don't know, quite a few people already, and I like to kind of do like a question answer style of thing. And so I want to always start off about the YouTube channel itself, because I'm a YouTuber and I'm always interested in the way that other YouTubers do things. So what really inspired you to actually start doing the YouTube channel, like you said, and to actually start pumping out the videos, start doing what you're doing?
Well, I didn't even realize that there were basically gaming shows on YouTube. Like, I was over at a buddy's house one day. He was helping me fix my hard drive for my PS3 because it crashed and had some issues with it. So while we were tinkering with that, he turns on YouTube and turns on GameSack. And I was just like, damn, this is like a TV show about video games. So he started showing me like Game Chasers, some other stuff, like really high produced stuff. But then I started diving like deeper into it. I started checking out smaller reviews, games that I was interested in, and I wanted to hear what other people's takes were on. And that's when I started coming across reviews that I didn't think were very good. They're missing a lot of information. I don't know. I would just watch a video and be like, man, I could do better than this. And I'd never made a video in my life.
Yeah.
And my buddy who showed me all this stuff, he was actually doing a channel with some of his friends. They weren't too serious about it, but he asked if I wanted to contribute. And I was like, sure, man. So I started off doing stuff with that group, but then I went and did my own thing, because it turned out I was doing the lion's share of the work for a channel that wasn't even my own. And I found out that I had a passion for it and I wanted to dedicate a lot of time and work into it. And I was just like, if I want to put this much work into it, I got to do it for my own channel because these other guys aren't appreciating it.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty cool.
basically what I wanted to do is make the videos that I would like to watch that aren't out there. So that was like my biggest inspiration. That's really what got me started.
Yeah, and this was like 2015, so I mean, there's some of the bigger channels were already pretty well established.
Oh yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
say, like I was kind of in the same boat. Like I never heard of people doing this. I didn't watch YouTube a lot myself, outside of maybe some music videos. I didn't really, and maybe some cartoons, but I never thought of actually like watching like independent people and that type of idea. And I don't even remember how I ended up stumbling upon the Angry Video Game Nerd. I don't know how. I think it was just one day I just thought about a video game and I just decided to start searching for it, and it popped up in there, and I started watching it. I was cracking up, and it wasn't good because I was at work, so I was cracking up at work, trying to like hold the laughter in. And I ended up asking my friend, I'm like, have you heard of this Angry Video Game Nerd? He's like, oh, yeah, he's like a huge YouTuber. I'm like, what? Like, people do that? So it was the same thing. It was just like, really? And then I started to like see like Classic Game Room and Gamester 81 and all these different YouTubers that were fairly big at the time. It was the same thing. I'm like, wow. But that didn't actually get me to want to start doing YouTube. That just got me into the whole idea that this exists. And I kind of fell into the same thing with you, where I started with somebody, it was for a different project. And I started Brian's Man Cave to kind of work with that project. And then I realized, well, I'm going to have to like kind of do this on my own. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've just been, it's fun. Like it's a lot. And like you said, too, I want to do stuff that I would love to see, the stuff that I've never seen on YouTube before, or you don't see very often of it, right? Like I find a lot of people just do that straight up review. And that was something I wanted to do different. I don't know about you, but I mean, that was something I wanted to do different.
It depends on my mood. I like to change it up. Sometimes I have over-the-top goofy reviews that you shouldn't take seriously. Other times, I'll have a review that's like dead serious, and it depends on the game. It depends on my mood, but I like to change things up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the reviews. I like reviews, especially some reviewers are very good at it and they're very thorough. And I like that because if you need to learn how to play a game, you go to these people. I don't think people come to me to necessarily learn how to play a game, because oftentimes I don't sit there giving the full-on tutorial on how to play it. And people like to know Swear Gamer. He's one of my favorite ones. He just gets right in there. He literally goes through the manual in a sense. He tells you the points. He tells you what you're doing in the game, how to beat the levels. Like he gets into it thoroughly. But that's something I've never done. Like
I'm a little bit more on the thorough side as well.
Yeah.
Because there are those certain games or some games that you kind of need the mechanics explained to you to kind of push you one way or another if you want to play the game or if it's going to be for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely get in depth with my stuff. I did see a question in here real quick though. Renaissance was asking here for me. He said, since you're in the same area, have you had any contact with GameSack? Let me just answer that real quick. Yes, I ran into Dave at the Subhumans show in May of 2016. I saw him standing over there, and it was in between bands, so I just walked over to him and just started talking to him, and I don't know, we talked for like a good 10, 15 minutes. He's also part of a Denver retro group that I'm a part of on Facebook, but I haven't ran into him through there yet. Joe, I swear I used to run into him when we were kids. When I was in middle school, he would have been in high school at a local game store. But yeah, that's my contact with GameSack.
So actually, like meeting like outside, yeah, that's something I've never done it myself. I've never actually talked in person with another YouTuber. I know there is one in my area. Well, I think there's two, and there's one that actually goes to the same flea market booth I go to all the time.
Yeah.
We've just never crossed paths. It just hasn't happened yet. But that would be kind of cool to actually like bump into somebody who actually does this. Because I don't really get out too much. I don't go to the conventions like some of the other YouTubers do. Where I live, there isn't a lot going on, so it's not easy to get out there and mingle with the people. So it's all done online, which it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of lucky. Like the Mile High Game Hunters live like 20 minutes from me, so we've been hanging out. I don't know if you ever checked out their channel before.
I don't know. I don't think so.
They're basically like a stoner version of the Game Chasers in Colorado.
So they're the Mile High Game Hunters?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
so I've been working. I'm going to be on one of their episodes soon. We filmed it already. So that's pretty cool that, I know some guys, Jay Dubious Gaming Online. He doesn't live too far from me. He's not really making videos anymore, but. And then in October for Halloween, we have a mutual friend that a lot of guys like Rewind Mike Tendo from Dude You Haven't Played This Game, Lucius T from Lucius Showcase. They're all coming down for a wedding around Halloween time. We're all going to hang out, go do some game hunting. There's a ton of game stores around here. It's going to be fun. I always have a blast hanging out with other YouTubers. It's so cool, like talking to them online and everything. And then when you finally meet them in person, it's just like you've known each other. Like
my people.
Yeah, it's just everything's just natural. And it's just like, I don't know. And I'm the type of guy who like, I'm a hang out with you in person type of guy rather than, I mean, we have no choice when we live, across the world
Borders.
Or whatever. But
yeah, I know. Talking with people, like I've done chats with the guy in Australia. Like you're always going to meet people all over the world, which is so cool about doing this. I mean, I'm like, I know somebody. I've talked to somebody in Germany. I've talked to somebody in Australia. I've talked to somebody in England. It's like it's insane. Like you're talking to people all over the world, which you'll probably never meet. I mean, you could if you all end up going to one, convention, but. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll actually be able to start going out to some of those. Now, on the topic of the YouTuber or being a YouTuber, did you did you have to figure everything out on your own? Did you have a background in video editing? Like, how was it for you? Like, how did you establish the channel in a sense?
Well, I had help from my buddy from the group that I started off with. Like he had the Sony Vegas editing software. So he just pirated it for me. So I got it. And then he showed me a few things, but I pretty much figured most of it out on my own and also by watching tutorials. But I feel that with the Sony Vegas editing software, it's like so intuitive. It's so like visually, like it's not that intimidating to me. Like I've seen other editing programs and like it looks complicated or whatever. And not saying that Sony Vegas is not complicated because it is. But for me, like, it's just, I don't know. It's so easy to use. Like,
you didn't have any background beforehand. So this was all just like new to you. Like,
yes.
Like correct. Even just using the camera and stuff. Like, I assume you use like your webcam, or do you use like a cell phone, or do you actually have a camera? I started off
using a cell phone. But then my buddy, the Shmup Master, donated his camcorder to me.
Nice.
A few months ago because he got a 4K camera. So he's like,
he upgraded.
He's like, you want this? I was like, yeah. So I'm using that now. I mean, I would love to upgrade the camera, but in all honesty, what I have for now.
In all honesty, I think what's more important in the camera in most cases is the lighting. We were actually just having that conversation before we started. This is the lighting. And
my lighting is awful.
Yeah, and I think every YouTuber I've talked to, they pretty much say the same thing. Like when they started off, their channel was horrible. And most of the time, it is a lighting issue. Like if you look at my older videos, I'm almost in the dark.
Yeah.
And I guess when I was filming them, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm like, to me, it was all kind of a new thing too. I've never I've took video in school very long time ago, back before everything went digital. So we're, using the actual camcorders that actually had the freaking reels in there, and the tape, So that was when I learned how to use like cameras and stuff. And even then I wasn't good at it. I always told myself I'll never do video editing. And when I started this, I'm like, okay, well, now I have to do video editing. And I ended up getting off my brother-in-law the Pinnacle Studio, which is the one I use for editing. And I had to actually go online and do the whole tutorial thing on YouTube and learn how to use this thing, because I was just like, I've used iMovie before, and I've learned on iMovie, which is pretty easy. But I can't afford a Mac. I don't know about you, but I can't afford any Apple products outside of an iPhone. So and it's if you bought a brand new Mac, it comes with iMovie on there, and you can pretty much do all your editing on that. And it's amazing software, and it comes with it. PCs come with like what is it? Windows something video player.
I don't think it necessarily comes with Windows Movie Maker, but you can download it for free.
Yeah, and it's not good. Like you can't do multi tracks on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think it does HD.
No, and you can't you can't separate the audio and stuff. It sucks. It's really, I tried that out once just to actually it was before I got the Sony Vegas software installed on my computer. I tried out Movie Maker just to try something out and put a few like still images together along to some music. just I don't know, I was itching for it so bad I wanted to edit something, and when I used it I was just like, this is very basic, and you couldn't do even a fraction of the stuff you can do with real good software. Yeah, I pretty much made my first intro using it, and that was about all that I could get out of it. And even that was terrible. It was like the run-of-the-mill, basic, if you see my old intros, you'll know what I'm talking about. Really crap. But another thing that, like I was looking through your videos, and I noticed you were talking about streaming, and I watched a bit of a video where you were saying how, streaming is, you just recently, I believe, started the streaming, game streaming, and that's how you started meeting all the YouTubers. And so what's your thoughts on that versus, say, the traditional let's edit film or film edit upload versus let's just do some streaming?
Well, streaming is, editing and putting the videos together takes a lot of work, where streaming is pretty laid back. You just play a game. The biggest thing for me when I stream is just like making sure that I'm like engaging with people, consistently. Sometimes I'll start zoning out or whatever on the game, or I'll just start thinking about something, and then I notice, oh shit, I haven't said anything in a while. But streaming, like for me, it's a lot of fun, but I also have to be in the mood to stream. I know a lot of people they can stream every day. Like, there's no way I could do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It just depends if I feel social or not.
Yeah, I've been the same way, where I felt like I wanted to do it, but I just didn't have the energy to it or something. I just couldn't get up to just go and do it, and it's just like, forget it.
There's been a couple times where I was like, I don't feel like streaming, but I kind of want to. I haven't done it in a while, and then like not even an hour into it, I'm like, I need to get the hell off of here.
Yeah,
just like I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah, and I know what you mean exactly. When you can get into it too much, and then you totally forget that there's a chat going on. It's kind of like right now, we're talking with each other, but then there's also a chat going on. But when you're actually playing a game, it's even worse, because depending on the game, unless the game is brainless, you're concentrating on that game, and then you have to stop, and you feel like, should I pause, then go to the chat, or should I try and like in between? So many times where I'm streaming and I'm playing, and then I go to look at the chat, and then next thing you know, I'm dead. I'm like, oh crap, why did I do that? Like I did it during one of my last ones. I was playing Castlevania, and you don't want to look away from the screen when you're playing that game. It's just that game's brutal.
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere, a Medusa head comes. You gotta be ready for it, right? So like I know what you mean, and it's tough. Like you feel like you're always on. Like you got to be on to that game, but then at the same time, you got to be focusing on the chat because you don't want to forget about people in the chat because that's why you do the streaming. And
yeah,
it kind of makes sense.
I've found that streaming. I streamed Final Fantasy 2 on Super Nintendo, and now I'm doing Final Fantasy 3. Those are a lot. Those games are so much easier to stream because I've played through them before. I know them pretty well. I still need help every now and then, but that's another thing is a lot of the people that come to watch those types of games know the games well themselves, and then they can help out, and then we're engaging because they're giving me tips.
Yeah.
And with a role-playing game, it's easy to catch up on the chat, like in between battles or whatever, like
that makes sense. Yeah. If you're playing something that has breaks in it, like
so I've like really been enjoying streaming those types of games, just because I feel like I can engage a lot more.
Yeah.
Versus like, so I like to stream shooters too, and like I have to like catch up with the chat in between stages. Like I have a hard time even talking while I'm playing at the same time.
Something's got to give, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Where are you going to put your concentration on? And it's even just like some games which are like basic, you could even screw up a lot just because you're trying to concentrate on what you're saying. I mean, my last stream, I kind of came up with an idea to have a topic, and normally when I stream, I don't have a topic in mind. I'm just talking about whatever comes to mind. I talk about it. This one was a topic. It was it was in response to Pat the NES Punks video, and so I was I thought, well, what's a game I can kind of just play and not really pay attention to? I chose Pitfall on the Atari. And even that, I was just like, every once in a while, I had to stop. I'm like, no, I can't do this. I'm losing my thought. So I'm like trying to keep it going, and then it's really crazy. As far as your streaming, I mean, I remember there was a video, and I was actually just looking at that when I went through your list of videos. You did a 12-hour charity stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite interested in that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Just
yeah.
I know that was a couple of weeks ago, or was it a month ago? When was that?
Yeah, it was about a month and a half ago.
It was a while ago.
So, some of my really good friends, their daughter was born like 11 years ago in need of a lung transplant. So, she ended up getting the lung transplant, but they only gave her like 2 to 3 years to live, before her body would reject her transplanted lungs. Well, it turns out she lived almost 11 years, and it got to that point where her body was rejecting the lungs, and there was nothing else that could be done. So they pretty much spent a month in the hospital before she passed away. And my friend Marlena, the mom, she's an English teacher at Aurora Community College. And I believe that she had to quit her job in order to spend that month in the hospital with their daughter. So that's, money that they weren't making. They're at the hospital all the time. So whenever they would eat, they'd go, they'd have to get takeout or whatever. I mean, it was just financially draining. Then, you got the after death stuff. And really the only way that I could think to help them out was to do a charity stream, because I sure as hell don't have the money to donate to them and help them out. But I figured, you know what? I'd been wanting to do a charity stream anyway. I had been thinking about it because I saw my buddy Mike Tendo do one for a cat shelter last year. He did a 12-hour Castlevania stream. And I was like, man, I would love to do this sometime. So I was just like, you know what? Like, it kind of snuck up on me. I didn't expect the girl to pass away so quickly. I wasn't even home. I was house sitting my friend's house, and I was just like, well, I got to do this now. So I really didn't have time to prepare myself for a 12-hour stream. It was tough, man. At like 8.5 hours, I could have called it.
So I guess you like, how did you deal with like things like having to eat, go to the washroom, that type of thing? Was it because obviously I wasn't watching the stream, but I mean, like, was it something that you like, or did you just jump into it and you just like literally sat there like this playing for 12 hours?
Well, I didn't eat all that much during the entire stream. Like I don't know. I'm the type of guy who, if I'm going to eat, I need to sit down and just relax. I don't like to be rushed.
Yeah.
Um, so I only maybe snacked a little bit during that entire stream. I would take a break maybe like every 2 hours or so. But then I had to start taking more frequent breaks as once I got past like the halfway point, really. Also, because my computer kept getting really hot, so I had to keep like cooling it off.
Oh, geez.
For streaming for 12 hours.
Yeah, I can bet.
So I had to take a lot more breaks later on. But I took pretty short breaks. I think I took more frequent breaks, but shorter breaks. And that seemed to work out for me. But yeah, it got to a point though where I was just like, I couldn't even remember who had already been in the stream, if they had been there the entire time, or they had just popped back in. Like I wasn't even keeping track, and I couldn't. I was just. And,
but you did raise money though. I mean, you did. You were quite satisfied with the turnout, right? Like it. So.
Oh yeah, I had people donating like $50 a piece and stuff. Yeah,
that's impressive. Like, yeah, I mean, and like this is what captivated me. I remember I sent you a text about it because I thought it was kind of. I really liked that. I really liked that. Just people like us, everyday people, will go and do stuff like that to help others. I mean, even the Atari creep. I know I saw him in the chat there. He has a part where he likes to try and raise money for Alzheimer's disease because his father went through, suffered it. So just even doing little things like that, it's kind of like paying forward kind of idea. Yeah. I always thought that was quite interesting, and it's something that I think more YouTubers should jump on, because I think YouTubers do build quite big audiences, and from what I've seen and what you were talking about with the YouTube community, everybody in here is awesome. I mean, everybody helps everybody. There's always nice things being said, and everybody's willing to help, and it's something that can actually you do something like that and then the word will spread, and you actually can make a change and actually do something rather than just play video games.
And that's exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, I was just like, I can use this platform to help my friends out. I'm going to do it. So, and that will be.
Are people still able to donate to it, or is it something that you started and it had to close down?
It's all set up through a GoFundMe, so I don't know if it's still.
Oh, okay.
Now, but that won't be my last charity stream though. I'll end up doing something for for like a cause I believe in or whatever.
Yeah.
But now that I know how tiring a 12-hour stream is, though, I'm gonna prepare myself this next time for sure.
Maybe get some help, get some people who will jump in on it, and you said you got a lot of people in your area, right? Like kind of into it, and, probably be good to get a couple of people involved in it and kind of like tap out and take a break. You take over, get a nice big fan for your computer.
Maybe even pass the stream off to someone else.
That can happen too.
And in that case, you could do a 24-hour stream.
Just keep going.
Get like 3 people, 8-hour shifts.
It's like those telethons they used to have on TV. I don't know if it's
exactly.
You get a whole panel of people just taking phone calls.
Hell yeah.
So one of the things that we were talking about, and I really would like to get into, is your video. You talked about your first video game system. I believe that's what you said. It was your first. It was the ColecoVision.
Yep.
And I always love those stories because it's one thing that I like to talk about myself. And I think every gamer, every person that loves video games, always has that story of my first video game system. Even if it was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they still talk about it. So it was kind of cool to see your video, and a lot of the stuff that you said about ColecoVision really resonated. And so what is your take on that? I mean, as far as playing the vintage stuff, or like, I know you're probably
Well,
more into the Nintendo now, but
I mean, I am, but only because those games, like, they're fun, but they're extremely primitive, and you can tire of them fairly quickly. But with the ColecoVision, like, I don't know, it was so, like, huge. It was such a monumental event in my life when I got that thing, that these memories, I still have them. I can still tell the stories of when I got these games. I still remember the first four games that I got for the damn thing. I was 4 years old.
that's impressive.
Like, um, I don't know. Like, and I love hearing other people's, like, nostalgic stories too, because yeah, you can always relate, and, like, you can reminisce about going over the next door neighbor's kid, and he had a different system, or they had different games, and that's how you played half the games, because other kids own different games, and
Hmm.
I don't know, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, I always felt that too. Like you always knew somebody. If you didn't know somebody who had the same system, but you'd always know somebody who had a different system, and
yep.
that's the way gaming was back then.
Hmm.
I find today, like the modern gamers, the Xbox, PlayStation, are very similar systems. They play a lot of the same games. They have a few exclusives, and then you got, like, say, Nintendo, which is kind of
Yeah.
sitting there. Whereas back in the day, it was you either knew somebody who had an Atari, or you knew somebody who had an Intellivision. You knew somebody who had a ColecoVision. You knew somebody who had a VIC 20 or a Commodore 64. It was just such diverse games, and each one had their own platform of games that would stick out. And like the Intellivision games were a lot different than, say, the Coleco or the Atari. So there was always that difference in. And I never had a ColecoVision when I was a kid, but I did know, like, I did have a friend who had one. Actually, I think I had two friends that had one, and I
Yeah.
always loved going and playing on it. I mean, it was such a different experience, right? Especially the Donkey Kong game. I mean, that's my favorite game, and to be able to play Donkey Kong on the ColecoVision was just like something I just loved to do. Because I had it on the Intellivision, which is a lot less superior than, I mean, graphically, anyways.
Yeah, it still doesn't look too bad on the Intellivision, though.
Yeah, it holds a special place, but I mean the fact that it only has the two levels. I mean that was probably the only thing that really bothered me. And the
Ooh,
graphics
I
of
didn't
it.
know that.
Yeah, it only has the barrel board and the rivet stage. That's it.
Yeah, that
It's
I
just
remember the 2600 version was like that too.
it's exactly the same
Only
as it.
had
Yeah,
two stages. Yeah.
yeah, and the sound effects are something to be desired.
Oh yeah.
I mean the Intellivision. It's like they barely even tried, right? And I know a lot of people like to talk about this, and you know, some people like to say that Coleco intentionally did that. I don't buy it, but I know a lot of people like to say it, or they believe that that's what happened.
Hmm.
Was that because you compare the ColecoVision Donkey Kong, you compare it to the Atari and the Intellivision, and which one comes out superior, right?
Yeah.
It's naturally the ColecoVision.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I can see a lot of problems with the company wanting to, because it was Coleco that released it on the Intellivision and
Yeah.
the Atari.
Uh huh.
So why would they want to put their name on such a bad product intentionally,
Yeah.
just to,
Nah.
just to try and sell a system? That seems a little
Nah.
bit off to me.
They did what they could with the hardware. I mean, Coleco just has superior hardware, plain and simple.
Uh, yeah, I mean, Coleco, I'd say Intellivision would have rivaled it pretty well. And of course, Atari, a little bit different. I mean, 2600 anyways, because we did end up getting the 5200, which essentially rivaled the Coleco. So it
Uh huh. Uh huh.
was kind of that whole, we're going to make a better system, and then someone else makes a better system, and it was kind of what they called the console wars, which was kind of cool. So what are your favorite games on the Coleco?
My all time favorite game is Burger Time.
Oh yeah.
on the Coleco. It is fantastic, man. It's like my favorite version of Burger Time. I like it better than the arcade version. It just plays so much better. Like, on the arcade and NES versions of Burger Time, it's so common to get stuck on a ladder and then
Oh
get
yeah.
killed. Not on the Coleco. It's nice and smooth, man. So that's got to be my favorite. That's the one I like to go back to the most. When I was a kid, though, Donkey Kong Jr. was my favorite.
Oh yeah.
I loved that game. And then let me think. Those two are definitely my favorites.
Remember you were asking about Tarzan. Was that one of them, or was that a later?
No, I got that one. I ended up getting that one in middle school later on, so I didn't play that until much later. That is a pretty cool game, though.
Yeah, it's something I'd never seen. Like I just started seeing videos of it, and I didn't even know it existed. I think the first time I actually saw it was on Cinemassacres. Mike and James Play Coleco, which came out a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, there's a Tarzan game on the ColecoVision? Never played that before.
Yeah, it's pretty, I don't know, man. It's, almost like a side-scroller type game. I mean, it scrolls by screen, but, that's
like
what
in
we
a
were moving
pitfalls,
towards.
kind
Exactly.
Of, yeah, very similar, like Jungle Hunt.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I picked up my Coleco, like I remember I ended up buying it off a guy, and this was going back in, well, probably the early 90s, before retro gaming was a thing. I mean, it wasn't a thing. Like you would find Ataris and Intellivision stuff just kind of scattered throughout. You'd still find them in stores, and nobody cared. I mean, Nintendo was the thing, right? Everybody wanted Nintendo and PlayStation when it came out. And so I was still wanting this old stuff. And I remember going into a video game store, and I'm like, I always wanted a ColecoVision. It was one of those things that, I grew up with the Intellivision. I love the Intellivision, but I always just wanted that ColecoVision, and I just never had one. So I asked the guy in the store, I'm just like, any chance you have anything older? And he's like, how old? What were you talking about? I'm like, like Coleco. And he ended up, he's like, you know what? I have one, my personal one, at home. He's like, if you want that, I'll sell that to you.
Damn.
I'm like, sure. And he's like, he's like, I have like a couple of games for it as well. And so he sold me the whole system and Donkey Kong and Smurfs, I believe, for $20.
Damn.
The whole thing. He's just like, here you go, my personal collection. It wasn't, it wasn't even part of the store. It was just like,
yeah. I mean, obviously,
I was like happy as crap. I'm like, yay, I got a ColecoVision.
If he sold it to you for that price, he wasn't playing it anymore.
Oh no, he said it was like literally under his bed in a box. Like he didn't touch it. And it was actually the same when I rebought my Intellivision, because I the one I had when I was a kid ended up getting sold off. It was practically dead anyways. I think I just sold it to a game store for parts. I bought that also in I think it was local paper. It was called the Penny Saver, I believe.
Yeah.
And people just put in what they're getting rid of. And I saw this one. It was an Intellivision. Again, it was like $20 or something. It was ridiculous, like cheap. And they said that it was just like when I went to pick it up, they were like, "Oh yeah, we just had this at our cottage. We never really used it. So it was like we only used it when we went to the cottage." I'm like, okay. It was like a complete inbox Intellivision with games and all this stuff, like a whole bag of games and everything. It was like $20-$30 or something. But again, nobody cared about this stuff. Like, it was not like today where people see this stuff and they think it's gold, and they go to the flea markets and stuff or wherever, and then every game they want like $100 for. So I mean, that's where the whole things shifted at some point, where retro started becoming cool. Even Nintendo, like at that time, I remember Nintendo games were cheap. Like you could buy used games for like $10. There's no problem. It didn't matter. And I was picking them up. I was like, cool. I still have games I probably never even played that I just grabbed out of bins for like
I know
$8.99. Nowadays, if you do see games for that cheap, it's usually like a board game or a sports title or something. Like, it's not, it's golf or one of the really, really bad ones that nobody ever wanted. Like you never see you never see anything. Like you have to go to those gaming conventions, and people are like, they know the value of the stuff. It became a collection, right? It became
Yeah.
collectible, which is it's a shame because you know, to me, I don't look at it as that type of thing. Like I never did. It was just like these are games to me. I just want to play them.
I'm just glad that I bought a bunch of old games when they were like $5 and less. Like I got most of my NES collection probably when PlayStation and Nintendo 64 was at its peak.
Yeah.
And I picked up a lot of Genesis and SNES stuff during that time too. So like I'm lucky that I bought a bunch of games cheap back like 20 years ago and still have them, because now, God no.
I kind of wish I was grabbing Genesis at the time. I mean, I had a Sega Genesis. There was a time when Genesis came back, after after its heyday. They kind of repackaged it with a newer model, and it was cheaper and stuff like that. And I remember it was just like for Christmas, my parents were like, "What do you want?" I'm like, I wouldn't mind a Genesis. I had a Nintendo, so I'm like, I wouldn't mind a Genesis. And so I ended up getting that. I got a couple games for it, and then it got stolen. My house got broken into, and
Damn.
the people stole the Genesis and all the games. But they didn't take the Nintendo, which I was thankful for. I'm like, at least I still have my NES and all the games. But so I guess at the time the Genesis was more money. But yeah, and I just kind of stopped buying for Genesis. And then one day I was in a thrift shop and I saw a Sega Master System, and I thought that looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the rival to the Nintendo, and I ended up bidding on it and winning that. And I was like, this is cool, and it had a shoebox of games as well. So I slowly started picking up those games. But I kind of wish I would have continued, like found another Genesis and I ended up finding a Genesis again later on in a thrift shop. I mean, I was always going to thrift shops and finding this stuff just laying there, like Sega Genesis just sitting there, $10. And, it's like, yoink. Today, you don't see that, right? You go in there, you'll see it in the glass and it's forbidding or whatever. And it's people want money.
I actually found a Model 1 Genesis at the thrift store when I went out with Mile High Game Hunters a few months ago for $5, man.
Just the Genesis? Like, did it have the wires and stuff with it too, or just the console?
Tried to sell the cords separately, but I was just like, no. I rounded them all up and pulled the prices off of the cords.
That's hilarious. It's like,
I was like, no. I
didn't realize it was separate, or it was together.
I don't think they did. No.
Yeah.
So when I brought it all up with the cords, they just rung me up for the price on the console. So,
which it makes sense. I mean,
I already have a Genesis, but at $5, and it is in excellent condition. I couldn't pass it up.
I totally would have grabbed that too. I mean, even if it's good to have a backup because these things do die on you. Actually, the other day I went into a thrift shop just out of curiosity, and I saw that the only gaming stuff I saw outside of Wii and what else was there? Maybe some Xbox stuff. There was a GameCube, but it was just on its own. There was no wires, there's no power, there's no controllers, nothing. Just a GameCube, and I'm like, And it was like $7.99. I was like, there's a good chance that might not even work. I mean, it's disc based. If it's something like I always found that the cartridge-based systems, you're going to be a little more reliable, right?
Oh, for sure.
You don't have to deal with the laser and all that stuff. And so, like, I mean, shit, the Atari still, you can still pick up Ataris that have been functioning since day one. And those things are over 40 years old.
Yeah, I'm on my third PS2, man, and I'm gonna have to get a fourth one.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
PS2?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I still have my original PS2. I ended up picking up a Slim from a garage sale here, and it's got these weird kind of lines going through the screen. So
see, that's what mine's doing now.
Yeah, it's like kind of like this blurry thing. I don't know what to.
Like, I thought it was the cable. I mean, I needed a new cable anyway. I replaced the cable, and those little lines I got are still in there. So I don't know. I may just need to clean the lens, but no, I know what you mean about those disc-based systems. I've
seen memes like that too, where they show a picture of the Xbox, and it's like had to replace it 5 times. This thing's 5 years old. Then there's an Atari 2600 VCS, 40 years still working.
Yeah.
So I think there's a question on what's going to be more preserved in the future, and even with like I'm looking at, say, modern gaming of today. A lot of it's like downloadable stuff. It's got patches you need to download. All that stuff you need to like connect to the internet. Where is this going to be in 20 years, right? Like, is your Xbox One going to work in 30 years? Are you going to be able to play the games that you have today in 30 years, or is it going to be trash? And so what is their what are the gamers of today? What is their retro gaming going to be? Are they not going to have it, right? Because they're not necessarily into our retro gaming stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's the emulators that are going to take over, right? I mean, it's a good thought.
Yep.
Or the PC gaming. Or speaking of emulators, do you have any of the emulator systems? Like, do you have the Coleco Flashback?
I do not know. So I was eyeing that Coleco Flashback, but then when I saw the list of games on it, I was just like, no thanks. They were just
no
just
Donkey Kong.
They were like the most generic games that they could possibly put on there. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not even sure if a single one of my childhood games was on that list. And I was just like,
Venture and Zaxxon are probably the 2 better ones.
Oh, are those 2 on there?
Yeah, Venture and Zaxxon, and it's got a few other good ones, like I think Montezuma's Revenge is on there.
Yeah, I never played that.
And I mean, there is a lot of oddball titles. It's funny enough, a lot of the titles on there are games that I was more familiar with playing on the Commodore 64.
Huh.
And I actually noticed that about ColecoVision. Like, a lot of the games that were big on Coleco were ones I actually played on the Commodore 64 that I didn't even know were on Coleco. Like BC's Quest for Tires.
Yeah.
Part 1 and part 2. I didn't know that those were on the ColecoVision. I thought that was literally just a Commodore 64 game. And so when I see them, on the shelf, I'm like, holy crap, that was on ColecoVision? Like, that's impressive. And even some of the Atari titles, like Hero, I never realized it was on the Atari. So it was kind of cool to see that. But I mean, the Flashback is okay. I actually took it with me. We went on vacation in the summertime, and I actually took the ColecoVision Flashback with me, because I'm like, I'm not giving this thing enough love, because I've been playing my real ColecoVision. And like you said, the games on it aren't the ones I necessarily want to play. Like, it kind of sucks that I can't play Donkey Kong on it.
Mm-hmm.
If only it had a cartridge slot, that would be awesome. But yeah, I did take it on vacation. I thought that was pretty handy. I mean, the fact that I could just pull it out, plug it into the TV in the hotel room, and just play some class. Now, what are your thoughts on the controller, though? Because this is always a thing about ColecoVision is the controller. And I think with any of the old systems, it's always the controller, right?
Yeah.
Even modern systems, I guess, today.
The controller is terrible. It's awful. When I made that ColecoVision video, I got all the footage through my Wii, through an emulator. So I used a controller. And I was so much better using the controller, using the Wii Classic controller.
Oh, like the gamepad.
Yeah, so using a D-pad, it was like so much better than using a Coleco controller, like way better. Not to mention with the Coleco, when I hold it, I use my right hand to move the knob. When any other video game system, I use my left hand to control the player.
That's something interesting. Yeah, I was kind of experimenting that myself when I was even up when I was playing on vacation. I was like, is it better for you to hold it? Because it is kind of an awkward. I mean, it's not like the Intellivision. With the Intellivision, it's a 16-point disc that spins, right?
Yeah.
And you actually move your thumb around. I don't know if you've ever played on an Intellivision before.
It's been a long time.
So it's a different thing, and that's what I'm used to, right? You slide your thumb around, you can spin your thumb. So when you're playing on the Coleco, it's a very like a stiff style controller,
Yep.
and it doesn't spin, and it almost feels like you want to hold it like a joystick, like an Atari joystick, but you can't. And so it's kind of odd. Like you use your thumb on it, you hold it, you know, and then you have to still be able to like the buttons on the side, right? You got to crank those buttons in. The flashback, though, the one thing I noticed is that it's completely devoid of that stiffness to the point where it's too loose. And so,
yikes, yeah.
Yeah, and if you know what I'm talking about, like ColecoVision games, they probably designed them, you know, with the controller in mind.
Exactly,
the stiffness it matters. And so many times I'm playing on it, and I'd just be running into everything, running off the platforms and stuff, and I didn't mean to. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I almost can't play with this. Unfortunately, it's not compatible. So you can't, as far as I understand, you can't interchange. So you can't take the flashback one and work it on a real ColecoVision and vice versa, which kind of sucks.
Yeah,
because I think the buttons are mapped wrong. At least that's what I heard from, I think it was Gamester81 was talking about it.
I mean, sure, most ColecoVision games only use one button, but I mean,
yeah, the skill level. What skill level do you want? One.
Yeah, and I mean, like the side buttons, like most of the games it's like jump. Both buttons is jump, but yeah, there are the games that use the different. You know, each button has a different command.
Kind of like on Intellivision, right? I mean, with the Intellivision, it utilized the keyboard a lot more, I believe. Like like the overlays were used a lot more. Coleco does have overlays, but I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing them when I was a kid. I don't think any of my friends used them. I don't remember seeing them. But usually you were playing arcade titles like Zaxxon, Donkey Kong Jr. You didn't need them. Like, so you hardly ever, and even the flashback, it comes with a few that are only used for, I think, for like 3 or 4 games. And but you don't need them. Like, it's unnecessary. There are the other controllers. I actually just bought some on eBay, so I'm waiting, hoping they come soon so I can try them out. And it's the Super Action controller.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried that?
I have a couple of games that uses those controllers, but I bought those games with like a lot or something, so I didn't get the controllers with them. They just they're almost like throw-in cartridges.
Yeah, like Rocky.
So, like, the one I can think off of the top of my head is Frontline. And actually, I mean, you can still play it with the regular controller. It's just really tough.
Oh, okay. Because I was watching, when I was watching your video, I just picked up Frontline not long ago, and I haven't actually really tried it. I plugged it in to make sure it worked, but I didn't actually play it. So when I heard you say that, I was like, oh, crap, I don't even have those controllers. And then it got me thinking. I'm like, I didn't realize that there was some games that utilize them like that. I thought they were just for, just a different experience.
Just a gimmicky controller.
Yeah, and so I didn't realize there was something different about them.
When I was making that video, man, I was surprised to find out how many different types of controllers there were for the ColecoVision for maybe only a couple of games.
Like the rollerball.
Yeah.
I actually got one of those too. Again, it was a thrift shop. It was a bidding thing, and I probably paid like $15 for it, and it came with Slither. And I think maybe I have I think you mentioned one game in there as well that uses it, and I believe I have that one too, and I didn't realize
it starts with a V, or it might even be that Destructor game.
I was actually just looking at that in the store the other day. I haven't. Is that even a good game, Destructor? I don't know anything about it.
I don't think I can play it because I don't have the controller for it.
I haven't. I have to look into it. I saw the store I go to all the time. She's got it for sale there, and I'm like, "What's Destructor?"
Yeah, Mr. Toon mentioned the steering wheel for turbo or whatever.
Oh yes, yeah,
like the gas pedal and stuff. I think.
Yeah, it's like your typical steering wheel controller with a external pedal. You put it on the floor. It all plugs in. And it only, I believe Turbo you can't play Turbo without it. I think that's what the issue is. Like, it doesn't work. or the controller doesn't control it or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it's like you were saying, they create these peripherals, and then even Atari had that, the driving controller.
Mm-hmm.
The Atari 2600 had a driving controller for Indy 500. And a lot of people have Indy 500, but they don't have the driving controller, so you can't play it.
Yeah.
And I found that out later because I thought the paddle controller would still work, and it doesn't. So I was trying to play this. I'm like, why is my car like just driving into the ditch? I didn't understand what was going on. I'm like, and then I found out later it's like you have to use the driving controller. I'm like, there's a difference. Like they look almost identical, right? So it was kind of weird that they would have these two different things and not just. I don't know. It was kind of weird for me. But yeah, I've looked into that steering wheel. Every time I think about it, I'm like, I don't know if I want it. It'd just be something cool. I don't think I'd ever play it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would never use it.
Yeah, like I ended up buying one, the steering wheel junior for PlayStation and N64. It was compatible with both, and I used it like once.
Yeah.
For like a few racing games, and I'm like, just to set it up, put it on a table, or put it on your lap. It was just awkward. So I'm like, and the ColecoVision one's much smaller, so it's kind of more awkward. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'd ever invest in one of those. Maybe if I got it for really cheap, if someone practically wanted to give it to me, I'd take it. But to spend the money on like eBay, it's quite a bit of money after shipping and stuff like that. The other thing that's cool with ColecoVision is the expansion 1, I believe it's called.
Which
lets you play Atari. Now that's something that was different. Can you imagine that today? Like, can you imagine an expansion device sold by Xbox to play PlayStation games on your Xbox? Like,
yeah, I know. Huh?
It just would never happen today, right? But what it was really was that Atari was a system that you can literally replicate at the time, and they couldn't do anything about it. Like there was no copyright on it, and so Coleco was able to do it legally, and a lot of other companies followed suit. So
you still got to buy the Atari games.
Yeah, then you got to, and then Coleco came up with the Gemini, which is essentially an Atari clone. So
yeah,
it's almost like having that module, but you don't plug it into your Coleco. But yeah, kind of interesting. So let's just talk for a little further about your channel just before we wrap this up, because I know it's getting a little bit late. So do you have any future plans for your channel? Anything different? Anything you're working on, or any upload schedules you want to change, or are you just kind of attempt?
Well, I don't know. I kind of ditched the schedules because I was putting like way too much pressure on myself. I was stressing myself out. I was trying to get at least one video out every other week, and
it's
hard, like,
yeah,
like I would end up just like burning myself out trying to meet my own deadline, and then I'd be so burned out that I wouldn't work on anything for a week, and then I got 1 week to push out something else, and then I'd do it all over again, like scrambling at the last second to put everything together. I don't know, but in a way that kept me more focused.
That's true. It is true. Like, when you got to get it, when you set the deadlines, like for me, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I know I at least have to have a video ready. and then you feel like the Tuesday you launch the video, you're like, okay, but it's like, oh crap, now I got to get Thursdays going, or hopefully have a few kind of in reserve that you're, get them up ahead of time, right?
I don't know. I've felt that my uploads for the past few months, just my videos in general, have really lacked as compared to the past. Just like how frequent I'm getting them out. Some of the stuff that I'm working on. I tried some different stuff, but like I think the main thing people come to watch my channel for is my like in-depth stuff, the stuff that I work really hard on, which is kind of taking a back seat to like streaming and other stuff. And I had a couple of months where I was dealing with some really bad insomnia, so I wasn't able to get much done at all.
Oh, geez.
But I want to get back. I want to get back into it. Every October. Well, get back. I mean, I'm still doing it, but I kind of want to get back to it at the same frequency and consistency as before. But coming in October, I always do like Halloween or horror related type videos for October. So I got some good stuff coming out. There was a video I wanted to have it out last October. I didn't give myself enough time to do it. This year, I should have enough time to do it. Let's see if I can get it done. I also want to stream some Halloween like related games during October. I would like to stream more and be able to still like put out like my produce videos at the same consistency. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I always like to do collaborations. I like to do those a lot. I really need to get working on another comparison video. If anything, those videos are probably what gets me the most subs. And every time I make a comparison video, I burn myself out because it takes so much work. So then I don't do another one for like 6 months. And I've
heard that before. Yeah,
I should be doing those like every other month. When I first started the channel, I was doing those like every other month. Then it slowly turned into like every 3 months, every 4 months, twice a year. Like I really need to get back on those.
You ever get that fear that you're just not going to be able to come up with an idea, or are you just like you got more ideas than time? No,
I always got ideas. Man, I have too many ideas. I can't keep up with my ideas. I have a notebook with all my ideas like written down, and then I just check them off as I do them. And yeah,
that's what I need to do. Pages. I need to get a notebook put together because I'm right now doing the scrap paper thing where I have like notes like flying all over the place in scrap paper, and when it hits my brain, I just like, oh geez, write it down. And I had to start doing that because I didn't do that before. And I started getting that fear that I was not going to have any, like, not know what to do. Kind of like, you said, like comparison videos. I used to love doing my comparison videos. And then I started kind of running out of games to compare. I'm like, now what do I do? And then I'm like, okay, I've committed myself to the Tuesday, Thursday videos. And then I'm like, okay, so I've already talked about this. I've already talked about this. So I started like, oh, what do I do? And it was kind of like a small like panic attack. Like, what if I exhausted all my resources? My game collection's only so huge. Then what? So then I started to realize, well, I just got to start writing ideas down, just coming up with new ideas, just start coming up with new topics, and that's what I did. I mean, I just started on the let's have just like different kinds of topics, different kinds of videos, to not just be all comparison or all just change things up. And that's what I did, and that's what I found works for me. I mean, when I did things like watch me suck at this game, and it was just like, I'm just gonna play a game that I really suck at and just play it, and that'll be the video, something like that. Or I did like a similar games, right? Or I compare two games and show how similar they are. So that is what really got the juices flowing. And I'm like, okay, and just start to build up. And now I feel like I'm the same way as you. I got a ton of ideas, but now it's like, A, I don't have all the time in the world. Job, family.
Yep.
And B, I want to stick to my schedule. So that's only 2 videos a week. And I don't know if I'm brave enough right now to say I'm going to start doing 3. I mean, I consider the streaming to be at least a video, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can stream. That's a video. Doing the live chats, that's a video. So I consider this to be a video, that's what I love about YouTube, because we can stream and then it becomes a video.
Yeah.
Essentially. I mean, it's a little bit different because sometimes people don't really want to watch streams after the fact. Like, it's not exactly the thing that people. I mean, some do. Some like to actually sit and watch a stream. But then they're going to miss out on the best part of it is the chat, right? So that they can't actually chat in there. But I mean, that's cool. So one of your later videos, or maybe it was your most recent video, you were talking about your Patreon and some merchandise.
Yeah, that was the most recent one.
Which is cool. And it looks like you just started your Patreon. Is that correct?
Yep, I just set it up like the day before that video. So yeah, just set it up. I've had people asking me, I swear, since like 2 years ago if I had a Patreon that because they wanted to, support me or help me out or whatever. And I was like, nah, I don't got one. And I've messed around here and there, like trying to set one up. And then I saw that, like, oh, you got to set up tiers, or I mean, you don't have to, but to make it more attractive or whatever, like you got to put some work into it. And I was just like, oh man, I was like, I got videos to work on, I got a script to write, I need to edit this. Like, I don't want to work on a Patreon like I'm working on a video, or like I got to write, it's like writing a script. I got to write, descriptions for each tier. Like I kept procrastinating.
I kind of thought the same. I mean, when I set up the channel, I literally did everything all at once. I'm like, okay, what I went and I looked at what other YouTubers were doing, and I said, okay, they have Patreon, they have this, they have that. So I set it all up at once, and I had no intention of pushing the Patreon. It was just like you kind of said, get it out of the way, get it done, get it set up, and then it's there. And then and there's always, again, it's that fear of, okay, I have a Patreon, but I don't want to be like, if I'm just doing this, I don't know if people are going to, how they're going to take my content. And to be starting off the bat, asking people to contribute just seems a little bit, I don't know. It didn't seem right. And
yeah, but you're
it's
not
good
asking.
that you kind of built up that kind of fan base and then said, okay, now I'm going to get it going, because I didn't want to talk about my Patreon when I set up the channel.
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you.
Because the last thing I wanted anybody to start thinking was, oh, this jackass just started a channel to make money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And anybody that knows anything about starting YouTube, you make no money.
Oh, yeah.
You lose money. You don't make money. And so I didn't want to look like I was like, hey, I'm just doing this for money. Give me money. And so I was very low-key about it. It was a while before I really started to put it in my description box and stuff like that. And the way I looked at it, I was the same kind of idea. I'm like, I'm not going to have the time to do the whole, I'm going to have all these tiers. I'm going to start giving you all this stuff and specialty content and all that stuff. And I don't think that that's why people want to contribute to your channel. They don't want to contribute. Actually, the Atari Creep, I think he had to leave, but he also just did a video about Patreon and why he doesn't have Patreon. And that was part of it, was the whole tiers and all that stuff. And his other thing was he doesn't put out content enough, which makes sense to him.
Yeah.
But the way I looked at it is, if people want to contribute, they want to contribute because they like the show and they want to help. Exactly. They're not doing it to get the stuff. They're not doing it to get the extra stuff. And the other thing I don't want to do is I don't want to make any of my content only available to a certain batch of people.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either.
Yeah. So everybody can watch it. If you give me money, that's great. But if you don't, that's great too. You're still going to watch my content. And I don't want to make anybody feel like they're lesser because, hey, this guy's giving me $2 a month, so he gets to see a video that you can't see. That was just my logic. I know there's others that don't do that, or they do a little bit extra and whatever. But that was my thing. And so I kind of thought, well, the only thing I can say is I will let them give me tell me a topic that they would like to see, and I'll do a patron's choice video. So that was the way I kind of worked around it, as a sort of a thank you. But that's just my regular video, right? That's going to go out to everybody. So you don't have to put a lot into it. And if people are willing to support you, they're going to do it, right? Whether you're providing extra stuff or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, I hear you there, man. I'd set up a tier or a couple tiers where people can pick a game for me to review. And I figured, hey, it's a good way to review something I normally wouldn't touch or something different,
Yeah. That was exactly what happened to me. The James Campbell, he was my first Patreon. And when I set up the patron's choice, I said, you can suggest anything, and that's related to my content, obviously.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about pregnancy or anything like that. So he's like, oh, I want you to do that Star Raiders game that you had behind you. And I'm like, uh-oh. I don't think I'm good at that game, and I don't know anything about it. And so, but like you just said, though, it gave me a reason to do that video. So it was actually turned out, cool. In the end, I was like, all right, here's a chance now. I can whip the controllers out and learn this game. So it makes sense that, if you have those tiers and then you can get people to either give you an idea or tell you what they want, as long
Yeah, I
as you can
mean,
do it,
either
right?
way, a video is going to come out of it, and everyone's going to be able to watch it. So, everyone wins.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you also have your merchandise. Yeah, you were talking
Oh
about
yeah, the
that.
merch.
You got you got like a logo going on there or something.
Yeah. So I mean, I started off with some simple merchandise with just like my logo or whatever, but then I designed a Renegade stuff from like the cover of Renegade from the NES game, where you got the good guy kicking the bad dude, and I just replaced the bad guy's head with my head, and I made it, and it pretty much looked like how I wanted it. But then I showed my buddy Jeff from Die Hard Gamer Brothers. He's a really good graphic artist. I showed it to him, and he spruced it up for me. He made it look better, and I ended up going with his design because it just looked a lot more professional than mine.
Yeah, so
So
you
I
kind of
got
spruced it up, jazzed it up, and then you were able to like create T-shirts and stuff.
yeah. So through Teespring.com, I went ahead and just put the logo on like coffee mugs, T-shirts, hoodies, whatever, and then as they're bought, the company prints them, ships them to the purchaser, and then you get a little cut from.
Yeah, it's like
whatever.
Spreadshirt. That's the one I use, the Spreadshirt.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I've had a couple things like the way Spreadshirt, they want you to keep designing, and then it goes into also a marketplace where random people can buy it.
Yeah.
But I just started realizing that's just too much work for me, and I just kind of stopped, and I just whatever. I'll just leave it with whatever I got up in there. And if anybody actually wants to buy anything, I mean, you don't make a lot, so it's it's not something I put too much focus into. I think, but it's just cool because if you tried to do it yourself, it would cost too much money. You try and print your own T-shirts and pay for it. Holy crap! Like to get your own inventory, you'd have to be selling them for way too much money. Like it just wouldn't work out, right? Then you can get stuck with it, like inventory. So it's cool that these sites exist. You never have to buy a thing, right? You just upload your image and then
Yeah, exactly.
they take care of it. So it's actually pretty cool. So yeah, that's so you got the links on your site. I also put a link to your site on this video, so anybody in the chat that's not familiar with your channel can actually go and click on that. And your Patreon link is in there. Everything's in there. And so, yeah, I mean, this has been an awesome chat, and I want to thank you. Is there anything you want to say while we're wrapping up? Anything we missed? Anything you wanted to like throw out there?
I do want to mention. All right, so on Tuesday nights, I'm going to be doing a stream where I'm going to just be streaming whatever game I'm playing, but we're going to talk football. We're going to talk about what happened in the NFL the week prior. So this would be week 1. I postponed yesterday's stream because I wasn't feeling very well, but I'm going to go ahead and do it tonight. So tonight I'm going to be playing Castlevania for a score challenge, and then I'm going back to Final Fantasy 3 because that's what I've been playing. But if you want to talk some football or whatever, feel free to drop on by. I plan on doing this like every Tuesday.
That's cool.
Because I start talking to like a lot of these people in other streams. We start talking about football, and then we start talking about it. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to set up a stream to where we can just come in and talk. And if you don't want to talk about football or you don't care, I'm still playing games, and we can talk about other stuff too. It doesn't have to strictly be about football, but that's going to be one of the biggest topics. So
yeah, it's good to have kind of a basis of what you're going to be talking about. That way, it's just not mindless rambling in the sense.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You can kind of get some common
stuff written down to talk about. So.
Yeah, you can get some common ground and some people who are going to dial in on who actually want to talk about, stuff like that. I mean, if they're really into football, so that'd be pretty cool. Anyways, yeah. So thanks for coming by and doing this chat. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to so many cool people and just doing this, and it's just even just in the chat, just so many awesome people in the chat. I want to thank everybody for coming into the chat. This was great. Again, if there's anybody out there who wants to do a chat, hit me up. I'm always willing to work out schedules and stuff like that. I know I'm talking with Linda, aka Gamer Girl. Still want to do a chat with her, so I'm not forgetting about you. And anybody else. I mean, it's something I really enjoy doing, and I try to be really flexible. So I got a bunch of other YouTubers in mind, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So thanks for coming out, everyone. And I just put a thing in the chat as well. I know we were talking a lot, so we didn't get too much into the questions in the chat. So if you had some questions and we might not have answered them, once the video is uploaded to YouTube, feel free to start throwing them in the comment section. And I usually check my comments. I try to keep up with my comments. And if Nefarious Wes wants to, he can even go in there and see every once in a while, see if there's any questions thrown towards him. Yeah. Otherwise, go to his channel.
I wanted to get to some of those questions, but then we ended up moving the conversation on to something else.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you do something like this to otherwise it would just be an open thing of just let's read the chat.
Yeah, there'd be no structure to it, and it'd be all over the place.
Then it's like if nobody says anything, we just sit here staring at each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm gonna let Wes get to what he wants to do. He's gonna be doing some more streaming. So if you want to check out his channel and talk to him about some football, go ahead and check out his stuff. He's got a lot of great stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.
Later, guys.